Hello everyone and welcome back to another Babbling Irons video with myself and Mike, and another rumour, Mike, coming out. It's become a little bit more than a rumour with ex-WHU employees saying it, but Denis Zakaria at Chelsea last season, now at Juventus as he was there on loan. We're being linked pretty heavily with him, and now it's kind of come out what potential deal we want to be looking at. This came out from recently, I think it was yesterday, that West Ham are expected to push for a loan move with an option to buy for Zakaria. And the fee that could be agreed at the end of the loan is expected to be in the region of around £15 million. So we mentioned it in the video yesterday when we were talking about Chalobah. Loan with option to buy could be a smart route for what we have to do this summer with a lot of recruitment. So Denis Zakaria, talk to me about him as a player first, and what you see in him, and what maybe, because I think Tim Steidten is a fan of him as well. So, what is the interest there, and how could he kind of slot into that midfield at West Ham?
Yeah, I think Steidten tried to bring him to Leverkusen when he was on a free, but obviously he chose to go to Juventus. Hasn't featured, which resulted in obviously him coming to Chelsea. He was also a player that, prior to him going to Juve, it's one that I was it would be a smart signing because obviously being on the free at the time. He's a very big physical kind of unit. He's got pretty good feet. He likes to carry the ball, strong, the kind of things that you kind of want. He's not obviously at Declan Rice level in terms of how he can carry the ball and so on, but he's a very much a tidy player. The problem has been that he struggled with injuries for a long period. He's been a lot better in the last kind of 2 seasons. He's not really had an injury. In fact, I think he's actually gone the last 2 seasons almost without an injury, which is obviously very good considering in the past he has been, been kind of rumoured to have suspect kind of fitness. It will certainly be someone that I think would be a good fit for West Ham because obviously, as I say, good physical height, physically strong, likes to carry possession, but he's also a player that's comfortable defending as well. You don't get into the national team for Switzerland if you're not a player that can fit within a well-organised and structured team, and he's flourished in that national team for a very long time.
In terms of where he would kind of slot into that midfield in West Ham, because I've seen maybe people labelling him as more of a 6 or more of an 8. So where do you think his best position would be if we were playing that midfield 3 next season?
I struggle to say that in my eyes that he should start. I don't see him as someone who should be starting. I see him as someone who facilitates us in which to sell Souček. That's how I view Zakaria. I don't view him as one half of Declan Rice. That's not to say that I don't think he's a good player. He is a good player, but we're replacing Declan Rice. You can't get rid of your Rolls Royce, your prized possession, and then look to kind of do things cheaply. And
do you think he would play the Souček role then instead of the Rice role in that system?
I think he is a player that you utilise in that role. I've said it before that when we talk about a 6, I don't think you necessarily need a 6 if you have players that are able to operate box to box, who are incredibly athletic and able to kind of play. You need someone who can kind of will sit deeper, but that doesn't necessarily mean they need to be a defensive foil outright. I think the problem is much of how we've seen football in recent years is, you've seen the likes of Fabinho, Rodri. I'm trying to think of the other club game known for him, obviously, like Sergio Busquets as a prime example. But you tend to see a player that kind of sits there, and it's not that they're necessarily there just as defensive shield. They're there in which to essentially be a bit of a metronome, right? To take possession and kind of feed and play things and keep things ticking over.
They kind of link everything together, don't they? They're at the base.
Yeah, exactly. And a player that can also, as you see, times basically allows that defense to split, and they kind of drop almost into that as as a inverted back three, I guess is the way to put it. I personally don't think Zakaria would be a 6 for us. He has been a 6 at Gladbach. That's kind of where he played previously as that kind of 6. But because he has quite a bit about his game, he would venture forward. So I think his natural compulsion now is to kind of utilize his physicality and to drive forward with the ball more than to kind of sit and hold and try and keep things going.
Yeah.
So I do see him as a player that comes in more on the Souček side as opposed to Rice. And we've named who we think we should be going for, and I think they are of higher quality than Zakaria. And I personally would quite like Zakaria, but I would like him under the proviso that he was brought in which to allow us to then sell Souček.
Yeah.
Because I think without people necessarily knowing you're looking to sell Souček, and to have already brought in his replacement and then to move him on means you can generate a bit more in the funds. And I think he would also cover what Zakaria's future fee is, which is I think around about £15 million or something.
Well, that's the kind of key thing for me is how are we going to approach it? Because like you mentioned, we don't really want Zakaria to come in and be one of two of the Declan Rice replacement, because it's a lot more of a challenge than that. And we can't rely on someone, although he hasn't really had too many injuries in recent history. It's West Ham. We know what's going to happen. Something will happen with him and it will come back up. So I think a loan with option to buy is the smart move with this, because like you mentioned, we can bring him in maybe now or in the next couple of weeks. And like you mentioned, if we're going to look to sell Souček after that, we've then got someone on loan for this season with the option to extend it for £15 million? It's not a lot of money. So I would agree. I think I see him more as the kind of Souček replacement to play in that kind of number 8 role. I wouldn't want to see him as the lone 6, but I think he has some very good key qualities in what David Moyes especially would want. I think he has that ball carrying ability, like you mentioned, physically strong. And yeah, I think he could develop pretty well under how Moyes wants to play, because in those transitions, I think that's what we lack sometimes when we have Souček. I think when we had Rice, he was able to kind of take the initiative himself a lot of the time and bring the ball forwards and try and link up with the likes of Paqueta, Benrahma. If we had another 8 there that could, who has that technical ability to break the lines and break it quickly, it then allows us to kind of fit what Moyes wants to do a little bit more and be a bit more of a threat in the progression of what we do. So yeah, I think it would be an interesting move. I'm not too sure about whether we should sign him permanently straight away. I think a loan with an option to buy is the best move to do. So in terms of his best qualities, Mike, what do you see is really going to stand out in that David Moyes team for you? What do you think West Ham fans would see pretty much straight away from him in that midfield?
I think one of the things that we'll see from him is a player that he's willing to get on the ball and drive forward with it. He will take that responsibility. He's not afraid necessarily to receive the ball in tight spaces. He'll look to get involved defensively, and he does have a goal or two in him. I do think there's quite a few elements around him that fans will like. He's an industrious player, and let's face it, West Ham fans, if there's one thing they like, is they like a player to run around. That's one of the often it's often one of the most prevailing arguments around players is he doesn't run enough, he runs a lot, and that sometimes tends to overshadow other aspects of the person that you're criticizing and the person you're praising. It tends to be much more of a thing than sometimes it maybe needs to be, because again, running around is all well and good, but sometimes it's done in the wrong places and the wrong areas. I do think fans will enjoy the fact that, as I say, he is industrious. He will look to play a bit as a powerhouse kind of player, and I think it is a smart signing. I wouldn't personally be signing him as to be my first choice in midfield.
Yeah.
However, he's an incredibly good signing, and I think that, for instance, if you was to sign him and a Kone, I think that is great, because you've got two players who are going to consistently push each other, and they're probably round about the same level as it is now. And I've always said I want Kone at West Ham. I think they probably are the same level, but Kone's also got much higher, bracket he can go into potential-wise. And having someone like Zakaria who's going to be consistently nibbling at his heels, and we're going to need to rotate four competitions again.
I'm going to say that, especially with European football again, we're going to need players there.
Yeah, and I think it's something people we can't. You often hear this thing, oh well, we can't have players being unhappy because they're not playing. Yeah, but that's the job of the manager to make sure that they stay happy, to keep them valued, to play them.
And the player has to perform as well.
Yeah, exactly. It's then you have to challenge those players. I'm going to give you a shot. Go out there, make a case, and if you make your case, you're in. And then it's that constant then competition that players know they're playing for their spots, but not only are they playing for their spots, they're going to get rewarded.
Yeah.
And then there's actually that level of validation. And as long as you are communicative with your players and you're letting them understand as to why you're not playing them this week, you may be playing them for next week.
Yeah.
As adults, you would like to think they can kind of take that level of, they can understand that everyone wants to play football, but also times you've got to understand the bigger picture. And I think one of the things West Ham haven't done for a very long time is we tend not to try and improve our base level. We always look to try and improve the first team, which isn't always possible.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you need to then go, well, how do we improve the baseline? How do we make that better? Because obviously that means you have greater competition. If a player is injured, you're then not bringing in a player that you're going, oh, is it going to work?
Yeah.
So, yeah,
that's what it comes down to, isn't it? It's like you mentioned, it comes from the man management. Like if you're a player, and I think that's been the biggest thing with Moyes is he hasn't maybe changed it when it probably should have been changed, and when players probably deserved more of a chance to start. I think that's the big issue. I don't see it on kind of the player side. If the player comes in and doesn't perform, they haven't performed. Like you have to give them the chance, though. That's the kind of issue we've had. But I think with Europa League football again next season, with Lanzini leaving, with Rice going, with these players departing, we're going to need bodies in there. And if, like you mentioned, if we do go and sell Souček after that, it then becomes vitally important that we replace it, like you mentioned, and raise the baseline, because it's not always got to be world-class signings like a Paqueta, like someone like that completely goes into that first 11 straight away. You have to do it kind of incrementally and slowly push up that starting 11. And then naturally you will see that the players improve themselves anyway. The competition helps. Every time it will help. So, yeah, I think for me, it would be a smart move to do it on loan with an option to buy, especially for the figure of 15 million. I don't think that's a lot at all, especially in the current market. And for the age, he's at 26, I think, around there.
I think the other thing as well, it's if it's a player that you're not sold on as such, maybe this is one that Steidten has stated that he thinks is a good player. And because he's played in the Premier League, it's the compromise. And as this one is a compromise deal that maybe all four of the committee are not necessarily completely nailed on, the view is, well, let's negotiate a loan. If a loan is appropriate, let's negotiate a loan. And rather than obviously an obligation, let's then get an option, because then if after the season we all agree, or even if, let's say, one departs halfway through a season or departs at the end of the season, the other three agree, actually, this was a good move for us, has done well, then we can trigger it, and we've got a player much less than probably what he should be. Because if Zakaria was playing, I'm pretty sure when Zakaria was at Gladbach, he was talked at as a £40 million player.
Yeah.
Like 30, 40 million pounds. So we know there's a player in there. The issue is, it's great getting one player who can run and move with the ball at times. But it depends what you get next to him.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's always the question, is it? Who's going to come? Is he going to come in with, say, someone like Palhinha, and that's going to be it for us? That's going to be our midfield transfer business done.
If that comes in, that is it for us. Not in a positive way. That is it for us. We are not going to be able to play with the ball. We're not going to be able to move the ball up the pitch.
No.
Any real conviction. We may be able to win it back, and then that's it. Like,
I hope that's not the case. I hope that's what. Yeah.
And I've said it time and time again, Paulinho is a brilliant defender, works fantastically in that Fulham lineup. It will not work for us because the other Fulham players are happy to get on the ball. We can't get on the ball. And if we've got a player in the middle who we're going to be relying on to win it and then play it, who can't do that, we are setting ourselves up to fail. And we're also setting ourselves up just to remain exactly the same as last season.
Yeah, and I think Palhinha coming in with Zakaria wouldn't work. But yeah, let's leave Palhinha for another video or another time, because we've made.
If we do that one video, I'm out.
Yeah, I think I'll have to get Sloth on for that one. But yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments about Denis Zakaria. Would you be happy with a loan with an option to buy for £15 million? Does his injury record maybe put you off a little bit? Are you happy with what you've seen of him? And yeah, would you think it'd be a smart move for us to come in as maybe the Declan Rice replacement or someone like Souček? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Leave a like on the video as always. Subscribe to the channel. We're closing in on 1,000. The last 100 now, I think, with the last stretch for us. So we'd really appreciate it. And thank you for the support as well, as always. So yeah, Mike, until the next video.
Come on, you
eyes.